me throw one more at you. I don't know what this says. I don't think the NFL is punishing anybody, but we've talked about this on the air. The older your team is, the more they get hurt, and the longer it takes for older players to recover from injuries. When a young guy gets hurt, remember when Ant got hurt in the NBA? They're like, oh, he's going to be out the entire series. Game 1, I'm ready. Jason Tatum, he'll be out the whole year. It doesn't work. Young athletes heal much faster. Check out the Niners' schedule. Look at this 8-game stretch starting mid-November. This is an old team with players, Evans, Greenlaw, Bosa, McCaffrey, Trent Williams, older players who have had injuries. That is a rough schedule. Cowboys, Vikings in Mexico, Seahawks at New York cross country. I mean, look at all the trips. Mexico, New York, Midwest. That is a rough 8-game stretch for an old team that's going to get banged up. I mean, it's been like a 6-year trend in San Francisco, the way they play physically. So I think that San Francisco schedule, I think the Niners will end up, we'll get all excited. Maybe the NFL knows, like we don't know how this is going to work out, but we want to keep them in the discussion early. But I thought the Niners' late schedule for an old team is rough.
Okay. Let's talk about the 49ers schedule. So, I don't know if Colin's implying that, week 10 onwards, so just the second column. If he's saying like the first half is easier, so they'll be competitive, and then the second half is a lot harder, but like they could get injured, and then they won't be ready for the playoffs. Like 'cause you got to go right if you're playing Dallas, Minnesota, Seattle, New York, LA, Los Angeles, Kansas City, Philly, all tough physical games. A bunch of these guys get beat up throughout the course of those games. And then they're not ready come time wild card round. If they even make the playoffs. I don't know. Yeah, listen, I think this 49ers schedule it's so funny. I look at this and I try to think to myself like when I'm looking at these schedules it's like what jumps out to me. Because you are talking about such a different collection of games for every single team. Even if you're playing some of the same games, some of the same teams it's like when are you playing them? Are they stacked together? What's the and it's just like I think a schedule either hits you or it doesn't. You either take a glance at it and you're like, okay, that looks actually awesome. Or you look at it and you go, ooh, that feels tough. And to me I look at this 49ers schedule and I just be like I don't know, it just looks like a schedule right now to me. Like I'm not trying to factor in well, they're an old roster and this and that. I'm not thinking about that and he was saying oh, we want to keep them relevant for the first half because we don't know how this is all going to work out. So at least we get to talk about them for the first 9 weeks. And it's well, LA I thought was a great team. The Denver Broncos they were the 1 seed last year. Seattle won the Super Bowl. Right? Washington Commanders should bounce back with Jaden Daniels, etc. But I guess technically the Miami Dolphins, the Arizona Cardinals, we'll see what happens with the Falcons, see what happens with the Raiders, especially for the Raiders by week 9, who's their quarterback, is it Mendoza, Kirk Cousins, etc. But I guess the second column, week 10 onward, second half the schedule is clearly a lot more defined in terms of the teams that you're facing and the potential of those teams. And at the very least, just the defenses of those teams. Minnesota, great defense. Seattle, obviously great defense. The Rams defense should be significantly better. The Chargers defense will be great. The Chiefs defense will be great. The Eagles defense will be great. Again, how great these teams will be and how complete will they be, don't know, but the defenses should still be, not liabilities, not weaknesses for those teams. So, those games should be physical, but again, in terms of traveling of well, you got to go to New York across the country. And it's well, yeah. I don't know. You got to travel. That's especially if you're a team on the coast, if you're Philly or New York or LA, like yeah, you have to fly across the country, so, like that's how it works. And, I don't know. Listen, I lived on both coasts and I had to fly back and forth and it's like one direction is really quick and one direction feels a lot longer and more grueling. When you go from east to west, it's a lot more grueling and the time zone is a little bit of like it trips you out a little bit because it feels like such a long plane ride. Some of it is like the jet stream, but it's such a long feel it's a longer plane ride, could be like 7 hours or whatever. But like essentially only like 3 hours passed because of, the time zone. Where though the other direction, it's a lot faster, you can get there in like 5 hours. But like you lose the 3 hours because it's again because of the time zone. So like, yeah, listen, that can be a little bit of a trick, but like not too concerned about it. I'm not going to lose too much sleep over that, but the point is you're at New York. Then you go back to LA, but then you're back home and then you go to LA and you go to Kansas City, but hen you're at home for Philly. Like, I don't know. Doesn't seem too crazy to me. It's one thing if it was at New York and then at Philly, then I could understand. Then it feels like you're kind of zigzagging back and forth, but that's not the case. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. If you read between the lines, Colin is essentially the 49ers are going to have a great first half of the season and everyone's going to buy into them and we're going to talk about them as being a top team and being like, oh wow, look at them. They're, 6-2 or something, whatever it is. And then the second half is going to be tough, physical, injuries piling up, and then it's just over. Then it's going to be a collapse and, the truth is going to reveal itself. That's my, my read on what Colin is kind of saying right now. Whether that's the reality of it is, in terms of the reality of that's what Colin is, alluding to. But yeah, this schedule I would say is definitely one of the more definitely split down the middle because I will admit that the first half is like, okay, pretty prototypical schedule first half. Like, you're going to have some tough games, have some easy games, like, have some gifts there. It's like, okay, great. And then the second half outside of the Arizona Cardinals, that's a lot of those are all going to be competitive games. You're definitely week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Like that is competitive that is competitive game after competitive game after competitive game. But it's just like that's football, man, like sure, would it be nice to have the Arizona Cardinals game like smack dab in the middle, And again, actually like we'll see what the New York Giants ends up being. I think either way, no matter who the quarterback is for the Minnesota, it'll still be like a tougher game, like I said, at the very least the defense. Dallas Cowboys well, they're always an interesting bunch, and same thing with the team like the Eagles. It's like maybe their offense isn't as great or there's problems with Jalen Hurts whenever, but it's like still never can count out the Philadelphia Eagles, we know that from history and whatnot. And same thing with the Chiefs and the Chargers. So it's just like no matter how great or not great the teams are in the second half of the season, like it should still feel competitive, and even if it's like, oh, well, clearly the Eagles aren't having a great year. It's like or clearly the Chiefs aren't truly what they once were. It's like still should be a tough physical game, right? It should still be a game that's not necessarily like those teams shouldn't be necessarily racing to the bottom. So yeah, but I don't know. It's interesting cause Colin's only highlighted a handful of schedules in the beginning. And I guess it's like I find it interesting that to highlight the 49ers here. It's like this is one of the main cause so far it's been, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Lions and the Packers, if memory serves me correctly. It's those 4 schedules, those 4 teams that he looked at. And then just after the regular national and I'm sure throughout later he's going through the other ones, but like the most to open up the show to like really kind of be like, hey, these are my first thoughts on this. Like these are the teams that he's coming at and I don't know. The 49ers schedule as of right now it doesn't land for me as something that's like, dude, we got to have you seen the 49ers schedule? Like we got to talk about this right now. Like this is like, do you see this? I don't know. That's not my personal read on it right now. I guess again, technically you could see the second half of the schedule as like really tough and a gauntlet, but I know I'm a broken record, but I'm like, well, it's football and if you're a competitive team, then what are you expecting? It's like, are you expecting just to face the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets like 15 times? Like that's not the way it works. It's so I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the San Francisco 49ers? And their schedule potential and what the impact can be. Do you understand what Colin is saying about the health but how maybe it's a lot easier in the first half, but it's a lot harder in the second half and in the second half if it is a lot harder, more physical, more risk for injuries it takes them a little bit slower to bounce back and then they're not necessarily ready for these other harder games, which then compounds the issues that then leads into the playoffs or lack thereof. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights, but ultimately let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're all on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as it really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.